Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lyfebulb Live Holiday Edition. Happy holiday, merry everything to everybody out there who's celebrating. I know this time can be also very stressful. There's a lot of anxiety around it. There's even probably a little bit of hysteria, I want to say, because of COVID and everything else. But take some time and just focus on there is magic out there and there is a little bit of peace. But today we are going to be talking about how to advocate through these holidays. And we have with us Jackie. Jackie, I'm so happy to have you here. Jackie is our community manager on our new platform, ibdlife.com. So make sure you check that out. Jackie and I have been friends for a while, and I'm so happy to have you part of this community. Jackie, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about you?
Sure. So I'm Jackie, and I have been in the advocacy world community for a really long time now. I was diagnosed with MS in 2006, and I started kind of blogging then. That was when people actually read blogs because there wasn't social media the way there is now. And then 3 years later, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And so I had that 1-2 punch, and the ulcerative colitis took me down for the count pretty hard. A lot of scary stuff, a lot of surgery, a lot of hospital, all that jazz. And I think it kind of really pushed me hard into the forefront of advocating. I started a nonprofit because of that experience. I have started working with a lot more companies because of that experience. And so I'm really excited to be a part of the Lyfebulb team right now. And like Annmarie said, I can't think of anybody honestly better to do it with, not only as a dual MS patient, but somebody else who lives with multiple things and learns how to juggle them similarly. So hats off to you.
And we do juggle a lot, don't we? And I feel like for me personally, and you are right about blogging. Like I remember like, oh my God, it's Monday. I got to get my blog out. I got to get my blog out because people were, reading that. And I think blogging is, a dying culture, so to speak, but people do want to advocate and they do want to talk about what's going on in their illness and everything else. But we have to remember that we have to take care of ourselves. And especially right now, like I said, at the start of this, between the pandemic and maybe not wanting to deal with people that you have to celebrate the holidays with, all of that, you have to take a step back and say, okay, how do I take care of myself right now? And maybe think about 2022, because I keep forgetting what year it is, and what you see that as.
Well, and I think, rewinding for like a hot second about advocating through the holidays, there's the thing that we advocate for, which is probably a health condition or maybe a care partner of somebody, but also advocating right now means choosing what to participate in, which is like a whole other level from, let's say, 2 years ago. Last year was similar, but now I have to repeatedly tell family members, I'm not coming to our large family gatherings this year. And I get a lot of oh, but we're vaccinated. Oh, but it's safe. And oh, but it's this. And, everybody's free to make their own choice. But this year, right now, that's not my choice. And so it
Right.
almost feels like double advocate time because there's the usual stuff that we do online. And then there's this like very real, timely in-person stuff where you have to continually make choices or inform people in your life. And it's pretty exhausting. It's a lot.
I chose today to not do my hair. That was my choice. That was how I took care of myself today. But Jackie, everything you said is so true. And one thing I always say this, and I think right now it's even more important. It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no to that event. It's okay to say no to going to church or to synagogue or whatever it is that is normal for your tradition because of your health condition. That is advocating for yourself. And you can even talk about that part of it. It doesn't always have to be, oh, well, I have MS and this is what's going on with that. It can be, today, because I need to take care of myself, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And I think that is the best lesson anybody who's starting out advocacy or is deep in advocacy can take away.
Yeah, there's the community of advocates. It's so interesting to have watched this community grow over the last decade plus, however many math years ago it was I was diagnosed, where a lot of us started again with blogs telling our individual stories. And then when there started becoming some people noticing this in marketing and healthcare and whatever, a bunch of people kind of got elevated to other levels of advocacy, we'll say, where they're not necessarily talking about themselves very often, but talking about the community as a whole or working to better the lives of patients as a whole versus working one-on-one tell, like in the beginning, I just told my story. That's all that I did. And now I rarely do that. And it's almost like it takes practice to go back to that, where you're like, I need to do what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And there's pushback and there's questioning, and it almost feels like starting over again, because it's just, I mean, times are weird, but there's definitely something about kind of circling back to remembering you're probably a sick person too if you're watching this, and you have to advocate for yourself in personal relationships, right? It's really easy to do it online. It's not easy. Rewind. It's hard to advocate online, but it's easier because there's a screen and there's distance, and
Yep.
you can be not a real person. You can be anonymous. You can be whoever you want to be. But when you're talking to like great aunt Jane, who's like, where are you this year? It's a lot harder to have those conversations and to deal with potential repercussions from them.
Yeah, and also disappointment. That's something that I struggle with a lot, like disappointing people. Sorry I didn't make the whatever it is. I was too tired or, and then everyone's like, "Oh, I can't believe you didn't make that this year."
I
And it
know.
makes you feel so bad. And I don't think anyone's trying to make you feel bad. I think the reality is they wanted whatever it was that you normally do, but you do have to set those boundaries. And that goes into advocacy. You have to set boundaries and create them so that you can be a healthier person on a
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah.
I had blood work done last week and I really wasn't feeling good at all. And I was in a pretty bad MS flare. Actually, I had MS hug, which should never even be called a hug. And my doctor actually said to me, "You have to remember that you're sick." And it like shook me a little bit. And I think she did it on purpose because she really wanted me to understand that I can't do everything
I
anymore.
am so bad at this. Like being in pretty solid remission from both of my main ailments for a long time at this point. I think I wrote an article about this a year or two. Again, what is time? I don't know. I wrote an article at some point about this, like remembering what it's like to be sick, because I had a really bad flare after like 7 years. And it was like I had to like start over, remember, like, this is how you do things when you're actively sick. And what I missed in that whole process was exactly what your doctor said, which is like, you're sick all the time. Even if you forget, even
Yep.
if it doesn't feel like it, you're sick all the time. And if you treated yourself in your life like that, you might not get as sick as I did that one time.
Exactly. And I think with the holidays right now, we do try to push ourselves with advocacy because we want people to know that they're not alone, that,
Yeah.
this space is the same. However, you are dealing with, just the chaos of the holidays alone can be stressful. And when you have stress and you have any chronic illness, it's going to add to your symptoms. It 100% is. And you may not even notice it like the next couple of weeks, like into the beginning of the new year, but then it's going to hit you and you're going to say to yourself, why didn't I take a couple minutes or moments, whatever, to yourself?
Yeah.
And
Ugh, so the last MS relapse I had gone 7 years without a relapse, and I relapsed in late January when I
oh,
finally
wow.
did. And there was a lot of factors. I think, hindsight is very informative, but I think it was holidays. I think it was life. I think it was a lot of things, but it was like the timing was very clear. And I feel like I knew it was coming. I don't know if you have that with
Yeah. Oh, totally.
anything where like there's something where I'm like, this is gonna happen. I can't tell when. I don't know if it's far or soon, but like I know it's coming, and I was right.
Yeah. And then when it comes, you sometimes even though you knew it was coming, you're not totally prepared for it because you
No.
were feeling good. And I think that is part of it too, Jackie, is that you want to feel really good, especially during the holidays. Um, but you don't always. And
Yeah.
so don't push yourself. Like pushing yourself can actually make things worse when you get after the holidays. It
Yeah.
really can. We talk about self-care a lot. I actually don't love the word self-care, because I think it's so vague. And I think when we take care of ourselves, we are building some resiliency, which I think is even more important. Calling it self-resiliency or self-resilient, whatever, however you want to correctly grammatically word it. But we're preparing ourselves for the future. We're making ourselves more resilient and learning more things on how to get there by
Yeah.
doing those things to take care of yourself. There's something I always say, like someone will say to me, like, "Oh, are you cancer free?" And I hate that sentence. Like, are you, I'm not free of anything. First of all, I deal with this on a daily,
Mhm.
but there are moments. that you do feel like chronically ill free, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I call those like mental moments, right? So I took my kids to New York. They'd never seen the tree. We saw the tree. We saw the lights on Saks. And for that brief moment, even though I was in excruciating pain, I was just in that moment and everything did feel free. And those are the things I think with advocacy that you need to think about right now is finding those moments where you can just be free.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm lucky. I don't, this is, lucky, I guess,
Yeah.
because I think that I have a fair amount of those moments, partially because I have been sick for so long that I think I normalize stuff that's not normal, right? So that's just
Yep.
fine. But also because it's not until something is like really obvious now, and I think that that's a really amazing side effect of being in remission for a super long time, of kind of like, again, forgetting how to be sick, forgetting what sick feels like. And then you get there and you're like, oh yeah, this sucks as much as I remember it sucking.
Yep.
But there's also a little bit of like practicing gratitude in there. Like you said, that moment, just the realization of like, I'm here in the moment and the moment is great. And that's all that I'm thinking about. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and those are the times where I think advocacy, you can take it up a notch afterwards because you did take time for yourself. So right now, if that's what you need to be doing, the advocacy is not going anywhere. The people that are getting newly diagnosed, the people that you connect with, they're not going anywhere. However, here's my caveat to all of that. You said something, and I said it too, about, having to go over someone's house and they're asking you a million questions or saying no to it and they're asking you a million questions and not making that dish that you normally make because you're too tired. They don't get it because they're not in that space. And that is why sometimes advocacy helps because you can connect with your communities
Yeah.
out there and say, hey, look at, I just had this happen. Does anyone have any tips on how I can get through this? I think, I've learned a lot from the community on how to handle and how to create those boundaries for things like that. And to also realize that I'm not the only one feeling this way.
Right. And so I wrote an article a few years ago called The Patient Leader Circle of Life. And it touches on this exactly, that if you need a break from advocacy, regardless of time of year, but I think I would argue, especially right now, take the break. Because I think what happens is everybody goes, well, if I don't post or I don't make a reel or I don't do this, like people will feel unsupported or they'll wonder where I went. And I say in the article, like, with all love and respect, no one will probably notice. And that's not a bad thing because there will be other people to pick up the slack until you're ready to return. Or if you never want to come back, that's okay too. Like, there's a circle of life. There are people who work their way through advocacy and sometimes they leave, and that's okay because there are tons of new people being diagnosed. And so, like, you can take that break and know that you're not leaving anybody to the wayside. Nobody's going to be like, well, where did she go? And who am I going to ask questions to? We live
Right.
in the information age. There are tons of people out there, way more advocates now than there were when I was diagnosed. Like, it's a, it's an endless cycle of new people and old people leaving or people passing, and because that's things we have to deal with too.
Yep.
So I just look at like this pressure of being this resource for other people, where if you remove the pressure and you allow yourself to be a real person who takes breaks, who takes social media detoxes, who does the things that you need for yourself, it's okay. People will be glad if you come back. They'll understand if you don't, and there are lots of other places they can go in the meantime.
I love this because I also have something to say about this that I think is really important. I agree with you that people probably won't notice. And it's not that they don't care about you, it's probably because they're busy doing stuff themselves.
Yes.
And you are actually giving them permission to then go do those things because they see that you are, you're taking that time. However, I think that it's really important to understand that there are other people that can pick up the slack. And if you're not doing it right now, guess what? Lucy's right behind you doing it, and so is John. And you guys can work together on that. I think
Yep.
that's pretty important, to know that there's this whole community out there that you guys can work off of it together. And you can take a break now, come back in a week, 2 weeks. And that's only going to make your advocacy even stronger because you
Yeah.
did take that time to care for yourself. And I also think that if you feel like you need to reach out, you should reach out. Do it. It could be the opposite. You could
Yeah.
be reaching out and saying, hey, I need a little support
Yeah.
right now. I'm super stressed out. And that shows that asking for help is okay and
Yeah.
that you are here for both reasons. Because let's be real. If I said to you, why did you advocate? You're going to give me a list of reasons, but I know one of those reasons is going to be because of you. Like it is cathartic to
Yeah.
talk about this and to help. So in order to get that back again, you have to share. You have to explain, hey, this is what's going on.
Well, and where I got to in like personal, like, one-on-one or sharing your story advocacy is I felt like because I was doing well for a really long time, I ran out of stuff to talk about. So I took a big step back because it was like you can only repeat the same thing so many times or relink to old articles or kind of like
Mhm.
it just felt like I was becoming inauthentic where I was just talking for the sake of talking. And I was like, there are lots of other voices now who have much more relevant things that they're living through, being a part of technology that's changing in medicine because they're actively experiencing it. I just felt like not that there's not a voice for people who are in remission, but I didn't have anything I wanted to say at that time. And
Right.
so you don't have to just create content for the
I
sake of
love
creating
this.
content.
You
You can just
don't.
take a step back and read or participate in other people's stuff or do nothing.
Right. And to your point, I think another thing that we struggle with a lot is the comparison.
Yeah.
Comparison. You see all these people advocating, and you think in your head, "Oh my God, I got to keep up with them because they're still advocating during the holidays." But that might be their therapy. Like it might be helpful for them to advocate, and that's okay. Don't compare what's going on with them with you. We can't do that. And
Yeah.
that's really hard to do because, and it's not, let's be real. I mean, none of us advocates are making gazillion dollars on this. This is really, cathartic and helpful in our own world. But the truth of it is we don't need to keep up with what they're doing.
No, and I think that this is where advocacy gets murky for me is because I have noticed there, you know, a lot of us know each other, cross condition area, right? Like
Mhm.
we know a lot. We see what other people are doing. And there was a period of time a couple of years ago where I started feeling like, well, why didn't I get offered that? Or
Yeah.
or why do I see that person all the time? And I realized that was the moment of like, okay, we need to reassess what we're doing here, why we're doing it, because it was becoming a job. And in the job, I had all the things that jobs do for you, right? Like comparison, feeling inadequate, feeling like I
Mhm.
wasn't producing enough stuff that was
Like
good
you're an
enough.
imposter. Like, why am I doing this?
Yes.
This person's getting, I totally
Right.
understand this.
So I was like, if I'm jealous of the gigs people are getting, there's a problem in this, right? Like, and now I think I've done a pretty good job at flipping that to where if one, I don't want every gig anymore now, which I think
Right.
is a big deal, right? Like now there are things I don't want to do, but also I've gotten to this point where I mean, I am a white cis woman and who is straight, and there's enough of my voice right now, and if I take a step back, look at all the other people who get to have their voice, and that to me feels so much better than being bummed out that I didn't get put on every panel or go to every conference or whatever.
And it's before we talk about IBD life, one thing I want to say about what you're saying is if you do run out of things to say, you want to take a break, you don't want to be the only voice because you are, you fit in that category, share other people's stories.
Yes.
Like that is to me like the biggest thing you could do for whatever it is, whatever that community is that you're advocating for. Share other people's voices because while people may not relate to my MS story, they may not relate to your MS story. You and I know enough people that we can share all those other people's stories and make those connections
Yeah.
because that's really where I found a lot of power for myself is sharing other people's voices because it's disease is not linear.
No.
It's not, one branch. It goes everywhere.
Well, and
Um,
making connections, especially like newer advocates who could use some boosting in the space, or this woman who reached out to me is in a South Asian family and has IBD, and there was all this shame and unspoken and a lot
mhm.
of cultural things. And I was really lucky because I was honored she came to me, but I was like, I truly don't know how to help you with this because it's so far out of my realm, but I knew someone who could. And so it was like, this is an amazing moment where this is not my spot, but it's her spot. And I'm
Yep.
happy to connect you with her,
And
you
I
know?
love doing that. It makes me feel so good when I can connect to people like that. It honestly, it really, really does. Which brings me to IBD Life and why, we brought you on because we launched IBD Life and we'll be, full on launching it in a few weeks. But it needs to be filled with everybody's voice.
Yes.
And honestly, if you do have IBD, Crohn's, all of that gut stuff that goes along with it, and you want to join a community, IBD Life is a great place to hang out, because during the holidays, if you are feeling stressed and you need some advice, the forums are there. You can connect with people,
Yeah.
and you could be tracking your health. Because I think another part of our advocacy is we are so worn down from grocery shopping, running here, running there, that we aren't eating right. We aren't exercising. We
Yes.
aren't tracking ourselves. So it is important to track your health. And I mean, the fact that IBD Life has that right there is pretty amazing.
Yeah, while you're in there asking a question about, again, how to deal with great Aunt Jane, you can track how you felt that day, because that's that data, we all forget. When you say, like, how'd you sleep last night? You could probably tell me, but how'd you sleep 3 nights ago? I don't know. And I think that goes the same for how you were feeling, your bowel movements, your all the things, where I could
Yep.
tell you maybe 2 days, but anything before that. So when you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, how's the last 2 weeks been? I don't know. I have no
Yep.
idea.
Same. I think I went to the bathroom once. I mean, you just don't remember. Tracking
No.
it is so important. And I think right now during the holidays, especially because you are going to different events, and you are, you are eating things that you probably don't normally eat.
Yes. Yeah. The food right now for a lot of people, but I think also IBD patients particularly, is rough, because a lot of it is, it's not friendly for most guts, but specifically IBD guts don't
Totally agree.
love a lot of what's going on right now. And I think that that's another thing with family, trying to explain why you can't eat this, or why you're not eating at all, but you're still having a good time. So please stop bothering me. Like
Right.
that kind of stuff. Like it's exhausting for all the reasons why it's exhausting for healthy functioning people, but there's this other level that if you don't have anybody to talk to about it, or anybody to like bounce an idea off of how to dodge fruitcakes and cookies and whatever, like it's definitely helpful to have someone to say, what do I do about this?
Yeah, and alcohol, I'm just gonna throw that out there really quick. I know we're just about out of time, but you can say no to that drink. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to have that drink. And to all those people hosting events, please, please, please have like a mocktail.
Yeah.
And not just for people like you and I who don't, engage in alcohol and drinking all the time, and I can't drink, but there's people who live with alcoholism and are in recovery, and you need to make that space super, super,
Yeah.
comfortable for them. And having a mocktail is a great way to do it. And we don't want anyone driving and drinking either. I mean, my list can go on and on with it, but you can say no to that drink. You can say no to that fruitcake. And that is part of your advocacy. This is exactly the conversation that I was hoping we were going to have. And I'm so glad we actually had it, because I think we do think that just because it's the holidays, we need to indulge in extra eating and extra
Right.
drinking. And none of that's going to help us in 2 weeks after the holidays.
Well, and the thing is too, you know your body best. And if you want to have an evening where you indulge and it's worth the juice is worth the squeeze on it for you, do it, right? This is like, it's a personal thing. If you want to do it and you can do it, if you're like, I don't know, this is going to feel terrible, but I feel pressured, that's when you're allowed to step in and go, nope, this is not right for me. Like the advocating for yourself part means saying yes or no to things that make
Right.
sense for you. And the alcohol is like, again, I think all the sugar, all the alcohol, all the like wheats and starches and things, like it is a bubbly bacterial mess in
Yeah.
everyone's guts for the next couple weeks. And if you can trudge through it, great. But if you can't, and you know you're going to pay for it, find a way to say respectfully or not respectfully, whatever, like, I'm not going to do this. And that's it. I don't have to explain it. I'm just not going to. Can we
I
also ask families to stop asking why, for why aren't you drinking? Why aren't you eating? Why, just say, okay, can I get you something else? Can that be a thing?
Yep. I totally agree with that. You don't need to, you never need to give a reason why you're not going to eat something. And families and hosts need to understand that they're, and in our last chat, we did talk about this, and I thought it was a great idea. Karen was saying how when she goes to an event where she knows that there might be food that she can't really eat, she brings a dish. Let
Yeah.
me bring something. And even says to the host, like, look, I'm sure your food's going to be absolutely delicious. I'm going to bring this dish because it's really better for my health, and I want to really enjoy myself and not, pay for it afterwards. To me, as a host, I love it when people bring stuff.
It's
I
a
mean, don't
win-win.
don't bring cookies because that's my jam, but yeah, it's a win-win. So think about that. Think about that. And one last thing I want to say about all this is you don't have to always stay for the whole time.
Yeah.
If your body is telling you you need to go home, go home. This is part of advocating. We can, and you and I can say all this stuff, but we have to walk the walk too. And
Yeah.
I have gotten much better about this, mentality. I'm hosting Christmas Eve dinner, and I said to my kids, "You're all helping me. I need help with everything." I mean, they will anyways, but my niece is going to come over and help.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
Ask
It's
for maybe more
okay.
help than you normally would. Whereas,
Yes.
like, I'm the opposite this year. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going anywhere. And there were some uncomfortable conversations around that, but that is what it is. And so people will deal with it. Maybe we'll see each other after the holiday season. Maybe we won't. But I mean, I've got to do what's best for me. And that is what's best for me right now.
That's the perfect way to end this, is because what you said is so important. You have to do what's best for you. So if advocating right now is too much, you take a step back from it. Say no. You don't need to give a reason, and just take some breaks. We all need to recharge ourselves. Jackie, I love talking to you. I'm so glad you're part of this Lyfebulb team,
Me
not
too.
just as an ambassador, but as our, community manager on IBD Life. I think your voice resonates beautifully. And I also think you do a great job of bringing other voices in, which I think brings a colorful, makes the page come alive. I hope that everybody has a beautiful end of the year. I hope there's some peace there. I hope there's a little bit of magic, and I hope there's a little bit of time to yourself. So from our family to yours, happy holidays, happy new year, merry everything. And I hope you find that magic.
Thanks.